Welcome to this week's solo episode of the podcast. Today, I want to talk about vacationing with kids. We just got back from a weekend vacation for Memorial Day, and with my kids, and I want to talk about it. um, okay, so let me just tell you guys where we were to begin with. So we were in St. George, Utah. So that's in southern Utah for those of you who don't know. And we stayed at my dad and brother. They own two beach houses at the Desert Color Resort. And so we usually take a trip, like a weekend trip, once or twice a year down there. It's really nice. The resort, if you follow me on Instagram or you follow them, the resort is really nice. So it's in southern Utah. There's literally no beaches around. Like you're not by the ocean, but they made this man-made lagoon and it has the softest sand and lagoon. So you can go out, you can paddleboard, you can get like your floaties, you can swim, whatever you want to do. This big lagoon. There's condos, there's big homes. It's perfect for family vacations. I have a big family. My parents had 6 kids, and we're all remarried. Well, I'm not married, obviously, but all of us have kids or are married except for one of my brothers. So it's great for big families because there's enough space for everyone and those big homes. But if you have a smaller family, then they have condos that look really nice. And yeah, it's just always a good time. It's like, it feels like going to the beach, but you're not at the ocean, right? So it's always a good time. It's good to just relax. Well, as much relaxing as you can do when you're on vacation with kids. And that's one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about was just how vacationing with kids, it's like almost like you can't even use the word vacation. Like when you are vacationing with kids, it is more of like, these are memories that I want to create with my family and with my kids. And then I hope my kids have when they grow up and have memories. This is a memory making vacation. It's not a relaxing vacation. There is a difference. If you want a relaxing vacation, do not go on a trip with your children. Because it's not relaxing. They like the sleep is horrible. Um, and I don't want to sound like a negative. I'm like not complaining. Like that I always choose to go on these trips with my kids and I actually do enjoy them, but you have to have the right expectations up front because it's not like you're just laying around at the beach or at the pool, drinking a margarita and reading your book. Like it always surprises me when I see people talking about books that they're reading, like other moms who have young kids. I'm like, how can you do that? Like I'm watching my children 24/7. Like I can't even take my eyes off them. I want to tell you guys about a situation that happened when we were down there in St. George. I took my eyes off my 3-year-old daughter, Daphne, for like a minute. Like I think I went inside the house to get water or sunscreen or something. I came out. She had opened the gate to get out from the house to the beach, and that's where the lagoon is. And I could not find her. And I was panicking. Cody wasn't there. Cody is my ex-husband. For those who don't know, he also went on the trip, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the episode. But I did not know where she went and I was panicking. And of course, my mind goes to the worst case scenario where I'm like, she's drowning. She's in the lagoon. She jumped in the lagoon. She's drowning. She doesn't know how to swim. She doesn't have her floaties on. So I'm like panicking. The beach is full of people. It's such a busy weekend. And I don't want to look like a crazy person by just running around, screaming my daughter's name, but I'm like frantically looking. I call my sister and tell her, hey, can you help me find Daphne? I don't know if she's in the house. I don't know if she's at the beach. I don't know where she is. And luckily she had gone with my nephew he's in his mid-20s. We had 2 of the beach houses. She had walked to the other house with him and I just didn't know. So thank God. But that is just one example. Oh, sorry. It's kind of windy outside. Tulo. It's kind of windy. Tulo. It's kind of windy outside, so my dog can hear my wreath on my door. It's kind of hitting the door and making a noise. And I think he thinks that someone is ringing the doorbell or at the door. So let me close the blinds really quick. Hello. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so what I was saying was that is why vacationing with kids, with young kids especially, is not a vacation and it's not relaxing because you cannot take your eyes off of your kids. Like you cannot take your eyes off of your kids for even 2 seconds, especially when there is water around. Like water safety is so important, and I don't know the exact statistic, but I think drowning might be like number 1 or number 2 of like the leading causes of death from young kids, like up to age like 3 or 4. Like it's something like that. Go look it up. But it's like a real issue, and kids can drown very quickly. It only takes a second. And so I feel like my anxiety was so heightened on the trip, where it's not that I didn't enjoy it, but I felt like I can't read my book. I can't scroll on social media. I can't do work on my computer. You know, I have a small business, and I create content online, and so that's a job you don't get PTO for, and so you do feel like you have to work even when you are on vacation, even just if it's a little bit. I felt like I couldn't do any of that because of my anxiety that someone was going to drown. um the pools, we were really good. There's pools at these houses. We were really good at closing the pools when the kids were not swimming so that there couldn't be any like accidents or anything like that. But just my intrusive thoughts were just getting the best of me, where I would be upstairs and then I'd be like, oh, where are the kids? And I would like run out onto the balcony and like look over the balcony and see that, you know, to check to see if the pool was open, because I my thoughts were just running with me. Um so that was really hard. The other thing that's like so funny about vacationing with kids and is like sunscreen. Like I feel like that's one thing that I don't really hear a lot about on social media, is like how annoying it is to reapply sunscreen to your kids multiple times a day. My little one, Daphne, she's 3. She has very fair skin and she gets sunburned very easily, especially like right under her eyes, where it's really hard to get sunscreen. We do have one of those sticks. It kind of looks like deodorant where you just put where you can get it really close. But there's been times where like I get it too close to her eyes and like gets in her eyes and her eyes are watering. She's crying, whining, whatever. She fell and she scraped her leg. And so then putting sunscreen on her leg when she had owie, that's what I want to say as a mom. I'm like, her owie. When she got an owie, you know, screaming, like I'm putting sunscreen on. I try to like cover it while I'm doing the spray sunscreen, but like a little bit gets on there and it's burning, and so she's crying and I have to keep asking her to get out of the pool, you know, every hour or two to reapply the sunscreen. She won't wear the little hat that I bought her, to try to cover her face and her head. Of course she won't wear that, and so it's just like this constant thing, you know, that you're doing when you're on a trip with them. Let's see, the other thing, the girls actually did pretty good on the drives. So the drive from Salt Lake to St. George is about 4 hours, just depending on how many times that you stop. We usually will stop once so the girls can go to the bathroom. But if you have like younger kids, it might take longer if they're like just being potty trained. Like there was one time I drove down to St. George and I think that we stopped like 4 times. And one of those times there was a big traffic jam and my 3 was it Daphne or Harper? I can't remember. One of my kids had to go to the bathroom really bad. And I think it was Daphne. And we had just been potty training her. And I brought the little potty in the back of the car. So we literally pulled to the side of the road and took the little potty out, put it on the side of the road, tried to like cover her up from the traffic so people couldn't see her. And she just like went to the bathroom on the little toilet on the side of the road. So anyway, my point is like it can take longer. But um, yeah, the girls actually did pretty good on the drive. I think 10 minutes into our drive, they started asking, "Are we there yet?" So that was fun. But overall they actually did really good on the drive. I think, they had some moments, but overall they did pretty good. Um, let's see, what else was I going to say about vacationing with kids? It's like really hard. Oh, their food. Food is another thing that's really hard because like I don't know if other people are like this, but with my kids, they the second they wake up, especially when we're on vacation, they just want to go. They don't want to eat. They don't want to wait. They would wake up at 6:30 in the morning and then they would want to go out and swim. I'm like, we are not swimming at 6:30 in the morning. Everyone else is still sleeping. We're not going to turn on the TV. We're not going to turn on, and I'm trying to cut back on screens. If you've been following me and listening to some of my other episodes, I've been trying to have more boundaries with screens and tablets and that type of thing. But they just want to go and they want to go hard all day. Like there is zero relaxing time. We have no naps. Naps are out the door. Bedtime, you let your kids stay up later than their bedtime so they can, play with their cousins or whatever. So like, but so with food, as far as food goes, like they would not want to eat their breakfast. They would just want to go. And then you're like so distracted as you're like doing things on your trip and socializing with people that I feel like my kids would just like go in the pantry and just get a bunch of junk food. They would get chips and they would get pop, like I think one day they had like 6 popsicles, like full of sugar. And as a parent, it's like, okay, they're kids, we're on vacation, that's fine. But you also want to make sure they're still getting nutrition and the food that they need in order to stay energized and feel good. Um, but they don't eat those foods. They don't eat like those. They're not eating that crap. They're eating junk food. They're getting into the cookies. They're getting into the candy. And of course, grandma and grandpa buy all the great food, which is amazing. That's what they should be doing, right? All the great treats, but that's all my kids are eating on these trips is just like a bunch of junk. And so that's kind of hard and stressful. And I don't know. It's like it's not a big deal, but it's just like one of those things that like takes you out of routine. Um, coming back from the trip, it's been 3 days now. We got back on Tuesday. It's Friday today. I still feel like my head is like in the clouds. Like I think that I was so exhausted from the trip and it didn't really hit me until we got back because I felt really good on the trip, felt energized and all that good stuff. I think it just caught up to me because we got back the day after we got back, I was a zombie. Like no amount of coffee could wake me up. And I still kind of feel like I'm in that. So it's kind of been a weird week, just trying to get by and get what I need to get done, trying to get back into the swing of things. Sometimes I feel like as many days as you took on vacation is how many days you need to recover after your vacation, especially with kids. But again, I mean, overall, the trip was great. The girls loved it. They played with their cousins. Like that was so fun. I say all the time to people that it makes it may having cousins there or friends for your kids makes the trip so much more enjoyable as a parent because then your kids aren't bugging you to play. They're not bugging you to entertain them 24/7. They have their cousins there to play with them and they don't really want to play with you. Oh, the other thing that's been really frustrating and annoying just in general, but happened a lot on the trip is like my girls are fighting all the time. They're just in this stage where they fight a lot and they are fighting and like leaving each other out with their cousins. So my older daughter, Harper, and then her 2 cousins, one of the cousins is actually Daphne's age, but they are like 2 peas in a pod. Like Harper would like intentionally leave her sister out of things. And I know it's normal. Like I had 5 siblings. I had a little sister. I know how it is. Like I know it's normal, but it's frustrating as a parent. It's like, could you just include your sister? Like, don't be so mean to her. Just let her, and Daphne does her things too. Like she, is a little bit more physical. Like she'll pull Harper's hair or pinch her and stuff. So like, it's not like Daphne's necessarily like innocent in all this, but like, could you guys just get along? Like, just get along. Don't exclude each other. Don't ditch your sister. Don't tease her. Just get along. Um, yeah. So, okay. I also want to talk about the trip with Cody. So Cody did go on this trip. This is the second trip that we have taken as a family together since our divorce. The first trip that we took, we went to Disneyland last October. Um, and we, on both of these vacations, we went with my family. So my parents, they have this beach house. We go down there. My sibling, all of my, wait, all, yeah, all of my siblings were down there. And it was great. I mean, overall, like it was a really great trip overall. I do get a lot of questions anytime I talk about Cody spending time with me and the girls or going on a trip with us. And honestly, like it's always been like a very positive experience, I would say overall. There's definitely always hiccups along the way. It wasn't always like this. It took almost a year for us to go on a family trip together since we separated. We separated in November of 22, and then the first trip we took together was October of 23. So it's not like it was like this on day one. And I did go on vacations during that time where we were getting divorced and separated, where he did not come and he was not invited. Um, Honestly, like this is really hard for me to talk about publicly. It's hard when you kind of open up your life to people online and people feel like they are entitled to an opinion about your life when they only see a small snippet of what your life actually is. And I would say that my separation and divorce is one of the topic. I mean, it's the only topic that I share the least about. And I know I do share a lot about it, more than other people, I would say. Um, but I actually don't share very much. There is a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that you all don't see and that I don't talk about. I'm a very open book, almost to a fault, where I overshare basically everything in my life, and that's kind of how that's what I've always done on social media. And I like being an open book. I like being honest. I like talking about things that people are uncomfortable talking about and are embarrassed or ashamed to talk about. My separation and divorce is one of those things because it is such a sensitive issue and it doesn't just affect me. It affects Cody. It affects my family. It affects my girls. Um, it's hard to talk about. And the more I've talked about it, um, and the more I've grown my community, um, there are more people who think that they are entitled or feel comfortable sharing their opinion about my relationship with Cody. And that's hard. It's like just because you are posting online doesn't mean that it's a free for all. And people should feel like, oh, I can say whatever I want because she's asking for it. Like if she wants a private life, then she should not be posting online. No, I'm still a human. I'm still a human being. I still have a life. I have a whole life outside of what I post on social media. This is my real life. This is my real life. And I just happen to be sharing it with you all. Um, and it's hard. It's hard when you open up and when people say things that kind of like trigger you in some way because you feel insecure about something and then someone says something that kind of triggers that. Those are the comments that are really hard to manage. And I was just telling Cody this actually on the phone, not about like our divorce or like what I talk about on social media in regard to that, but like just about being like a mom. It's hard when you feel like you already feel like you're a bad mom. And then when you post something online and then you have people telling you that, yes, you are a bad mom, it just kind of reinforces the insecurities that you already have. And that's been something that's really been challenging for me recently. The comments for the most part don't get to me, but as I've grown my community and my reach has gotten wider, and I'm reaching people that aren't my followers and don't know who I am, and I'm not humanized to them. I get more negativity, and lately I've just been wanting to just turn my comments off and just avoid it, and just distance myself from that. And I don't want to, or like I've been wanting to like water my content down, and that's not why I started my account. That like I don't want to do that, but I see why people do it. I see why Instagram is a highlight reel, because people can be mean. Going back to my relationship with Cody, one thing that was really hard on this trip was it's hard to see your ex be the person that you always wanted them to be. And it's painful because it's like, why couldn't he have done these things 2 years ago when I was begging him to? And this isn't like a dig on him or criticizing him. I've said all of these things to him, but it's incredibly painful. I've never hated Cody. I've always loved him, and that's why leaving him was very hard and took a long time, was because I did love him, and I do love him. I still love him. I've never hated him. I mean, you could argue that leaving someone is easier when you hate them, when you despise them. I never felt that way about Cody, but there were things that were going on that I wasn't okay with, and I had boundaries that I had set for myself, and I just wasn't like, love is not enough. Love is not enough to make a relationship work. It's just not. Um so it was really painful for me to see him being the partner and father and person that I always knew he was capable of, and doing the things that I had asked him to. And it's like, we're divorced now. Like, why couldn't you have done this 2 years ago? Like, we could have avoided this whole thing. We could have avoided our divorce. We could have avoided the pain and just everything. And it just sucks. It's just really hard. So I don't know. That was the one thing that was a little bit different on this trip than it was back in October, where I didn't really feel that way. It was still a great trip on that one, but I felt a lot more neutral about our relationship. And now it just feels very painful, in some ways, and at the end of the day, like, of course I'm happy that he's doing these things and that he's doing so well and he's healthy and he's working out and he's taking care of himself physically and mentally. He's an equal partner. I can truly say that. Like, he has really stepped up, and that's amazing. Like, everyone benefits from that, especially our kids. And so it's not that I wish that he wasn't like that, but it's just that feeling of like, why couldn't this have happened before? Like, and I know it has nothing to do with me. This feels like a therapy session, and I'm being very vulnerable with you guys, and so please be kind to me. I'm just expressing where I'm at with no filter on this, but it's just really painful. It really is just like, it's very painful to go through. But I'm happy for him, and he's doing great, and everyone benefits from that. Okay. Oh, I will move on from that topic. It was heavy. Going back to swimming, I forgot to say this before. I want to give an update on swim lessons for my girls. So I know I talked a little bit about like my anxiety with like drowning and all of that on this trip. So we put both my girls in swim lessons, and I have another solo episode on it, I want to say, where I talk very briefly about it. But we put both my girls in swim lessons, Harper and Daphne. They're 6 and 3. Put them in swim lessons in February or March. So it's been a couple of months, and they've been going about once a week. They are one-on-one classes. We felt like that was the best format for especially Harper, my older daughter, because we had tried group classes a couple of years ago, and she has been a child who, ever since she was a baby, she hated water on her face. And so even giving her a bath, up until about a year ago was a straight nightmare. Like she would have to put a dry towel over her face. Like she couldn't get any water on her face. Like she would just start screaming and crying. So we had tried swim lessons a couple years ago in a group setting, but it did not go well at all. And she had a lot of anxiety, as many kids do, and there was a lot of kids there, and I think that just kind of added to it. So we decided that one-on-one classes were a better option. I think my Daphne, my little one, would do great in either a group setting or private. But we were already doing Harper in private, and we were just like, we'll just do them at the same time just to make it easy. The first couple lessons that especially Harper went to, literally she was crying, screaming, and they almost didn't do any swimming. It was like just playing with toys and water to kind of get her acclimated to it. I thought she's never going to learn how to swim. Like this is going to be a struggle. And now she's fully swimming. Like she can jump in the water, she can dive into the water, swim up, they call it pancake. If you're watching me on YouTube, it's like they swim up and they put their hands behind their neck and they, are floating on their back basically. She can do that. She can do breaststroke, the front stroke. She can do that really well. They're just working on technique. Like she can survive. Like if she fell in the water, she would be able to, she wouldn't drown. She'd be fine, which is amazing. She gets her face wet, like no problem. She's so confident swimming, which is amazing. And Daphne's doing great too. She's never been afraid of the water. If anything, she's more high risk for drowning because she has no fear. It's like that second child syndrome. Like she'll just jump in the water like without a care in the world. So she's doing really great too. She's not as advanced as Harper, but she's doing great. But even with that, going on the vacation, I was like, I'm not in a place that we're kind of in this weird spot where like they're not the best swimmers. They can survive if they fell in the water, but they want to swim all day. Like they would literally be in the swimming pool for like 4 hours at a time. Like I'm not even exaggerating. And I'm like, I'm not going to let them swim for 4 hours without floaties on. I'm going to have to be there the whole time. I don't want to be in the swimming pool for 4 hours. Like, give me a break. So we let them use their floaties. And I know that everyone says, don't let them use their floaties. It's going to take them back on their progress in their swim. And maybe there is something to that. But my girls just went to swim yesterday after we got back, and they did better than they ever have this last lesson. And they basically wore a life jacket or floaties the entire vacation. Every day we did spend about 20 or 30 minutes, Cody and I, working with the girls on their technique. But also that's like another thing is that the girls, like they just learn better when it's an instructor and a teacher. They just wanted to play. Like Daphne wasn't even taking it seriously when I was trying to work with her on swimming. Like it was like, no, we do need to hire someone. We can't do this alone, like by ourselves, because our kids just view us as play. Like they just want to play with us. They don't want to learn that way from us, at least in my experience. So if you're struggling with swim lessons, it gets better. Just push through it. I promise you, I swear to God, if my daughter can do it, like your child is going to be able to do it. Just push through those first lessons. And if you have to use floaties or life jacket because you're going on a trip, don't feel anxious or that you're like throwing money down the drain. Like it's all going to work out. Like just do your thing. And it's worth it. Like 100% swim lessons are worth it. It's so expensive, by the way. Like, it makes me sick, but worth it in my opinion. All right. Well, I think that's all for this week's episode. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, you guys. I'm trying to grow my YouTube account. I think I'm getting like 20 views per episode, which is not very great. So go and subscribe over at YouTube. I also post other content over there as well. Leave a review. The reviews are so important for the podcast. If you're loving the podcast, if you want me to continue doing the podcast, go leave me a review and we'll talk next week.